You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with Zoe Williams, columnist at The Guardian, and the PR consultant Alex Dean. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The Guardian reports that the police are braced for unrest from the shameful far right after a series of protests in response to the Southport stabbings. The Times also leads on that story, looking at the promise of extra police and prison cells to stop more riots. And the Express looks at the Prime Minister's assertion that Britain cannot let rioting thugs win. The Mail writes that the 17-year-old accused of the Southport murders formerly fronted a campaign for the BBC's Children in Need. The Telegraph turns its attention to Kemi Badenoch and her assertion that the UK needs a better plan for integration. The Mirror quotes the teen at the centre of the Hugh Edwards scandal, writing that he was in need, but Hugh groomed him. Meanwhile, the Eye leads on their investigation, which revealed that thousands of brand new affordable homes are sitting empty and unused because of a hidden national housing crisis. The Financial Times reports that the Nasdaq has fallen into a correction over worries of the US economy, with a slowdown in hiring. And the Star writes that we should learn to love maggots, as critters could save countless lives. OK. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Zoe Williams and Alex Dean. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Let's start with the Times front page and further unrest this evening. I'm not sure if the Times has even had a chance to include what's happening in Sunderland this evening, but we've had the shots, you know, cars, well, one car at least overturned and not on fire.
And a police station set on fire.
Yes, which we didn't have the pictures for previously, but we do have those now. So we'll just bring those up. That was unconfirmed at our last point of looking at this story, but the police now confirming that that is the case. The police station has been set on fire. We know that there were horse-mounted officers who apparently, according to our reporter who was reporting actually from Liverpool but had contact with Northumberland police, they were driven back even on horseback. The crowds were throwing missiles draped in the England flag, and actually just very, very tense, dangerous scenes tonight.
You will recall that in the course of the general election, Keir Starmer's record as Director of Public Prosecutions came under some scrutiny, and he was criticised by some people for seeking tough penalties in the last round of real rioting we had as a country. I did not join in those criticisms when they were made, and I think they were wrong then, and I think that kind of criticism is wrong now. The first response of government is to defend us from external threats, and the first response of government internally is to keep law and order on our streets. You cannot have this happen in a civilised society. And while, of course, people are angry after those little girls were murdered in Southport, I was angry too. But you do not manifest that in going out and setting fire to things. What do the people doing this think they are achieving? When you go and set fire to someone's car, do you think that person might have been thinking, well, you know, I'm a bit ambivalent about child murder, but now you've set my car on fire, oh, now I really see the error of my ways? When they set fire to a police station, the people who are trying to pursue people and prosecute them, do they think the police were hitherto ambivalent about child murder but are now convinced of their position? So the only quibble I might have with this, as someone on the right myself, is the association with any of this with any kind of political point at all. It is mindless stupidity and thuggery, and it should be stopped.
The thing is, I agree with you to a point, but it is political. It is wound up by racist propaganda, mostly online, partly by Nigel Farage. It is mobilised by racism, anti-migration, anti-diversity, anti-multiculturalism. It is cheerled by people who try and score cheap points about multiculturalism without ever saying what kind of multiculturalism they would like. So we cannot, I don't think, say this is not political, because it is. But I completely agree with you. Prosecute the full force of the law.
Yeah.
But I also think it's time to have some standards on social media. It's absolutely ridiculous. You would not be allowed in print media, you would not be allowed in broadcast media to make up names about suspects, to make up facts about where they'd come from. You wouldn't be allowed to make up falsehoods about their immigration status. You know, we had actual MPs. We had MPs saying things about this suspect with regards to his faith, his religion, which were just not true. And you've got to have some standards on Twitter.
Well,
I honestly think somebody should prosecute Elon Musk for this, because he is, in the end, the publisher. That's what would happen if The Guardian did it.
Well, in that long-standing debate about whether the platforms are publishers or merely facilitating
Somebody's
conversation.
publishing it, right?
Yeah, so, and the individuals, that's when someone gets their collar felt by a police officer going around, it's the person who wrote it, not the platform. But it's an unfashionable point to make, but the judge in this case gave a ruling that the suspect, despite the fact that he is under 18, could be named in order to dispel the kinds of points that you're discussing. That is the system working. That is the appropriate position being taken, working through the current legal system. And you don't suddenly have to upturn, it seems to me, things and make new provision for what people are doing. What the judge did is the system working.
Is that social media then dictating our legal system?
But it's also, that's a completely different point. That doesn't address the problem on social media at all. That just addresses the anonymity of the suspect. I don't even agree with that, you know. Whatever.
Oh, you think the judge should have withheld that, even now?
Look, I really genuinely see the judge's point. I think the name the identity did have to be revealed, because otherwise it was fueling misinformation. But I'm disgusted that a rule which is there because we understand that people who are under 18 are different to people who are over 18 has had to be cast aside for thugs whose hatred is generated on Facebook and Twitter. I'm disgusted by that. And I do not think that looks like the system working.
Do you think the judge was wrong?
I don't think he's wrong. I just think it looks like he's been backed into a corner by a really toxic culture online, which we need to address in a more systemic way than just throwing out all the rules we had before.
Alex, let's move on to the Express and their headline, Britain cannot let rioting thugs win. Shadow Home Secretary James cleverly says ministers must back the police to do what's necessary, to the point that you were making previously.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. If you are motivated to express your views about what happened in Southport, and I can well understand that, then doing so peacefully is part of what we do as a society. But if you find yourself in a place where this kind of activity is even beginning, the right thing to do is to quietly leave. And even being present and associating yourself with those who are starting this kind of violence lends to them the sense that they are doing things in your name. If you feel, and the day that news broke about what happened in Southport, I played with my son and I thought about the future I want him to have, that those children have been denied. And I well understand the depth of him. I think I well understand the depth of emotion that people around this country are feeling, because I share it too. But it in no way justifies anything. We had a round of anger against paedophiles in this country, and a paediatrician's office got set on fire.
Yeah,
you know, this kind of mindless anger is deeply, deeply unproductive and unhelpful.
And Zoe, the families affected, the families that are grieving, are saying, you know, this is not in our name. So one can only just imagine, what are these people thinking? They're not helping the families.
No, I don't think it's anything to do with the families. And
of course.
You know, and not only the families, the people of Southport said exactly the same thing. This is not in our name, this is not who we want to be, this is not the place that we are. But you know, we're still skirting around the issue, which is this isn't coming out of nowhere. This is carefully curated hate mobs generated by far-right propaganda. There isn't any other way around it. It's not like an accident. It's not like a load of fools happen to arrive on the streets. A lot of these guys were coming themselves from a really long way away. You know, and it's interesting this.
I didn't. How do you know that? It's a genuine question.
In the first right in Southport itself, they identified one of the main culprits as having come from Cardiff. He'd served time in prison for having,
like the killer.
Yeah, for football-related violence some time ago, granted. But the point is, and I think this is what comes out in the Times story, although not directly, is that if you think about those 2011 riots, even though they were really prosecuted for the full force of the law afterwards, at the time they happened, the police really backed off because they did not know what they were dealing with.
That's true.
Whereas in this case, I think they do know what they're dealing with. They are looking at something very like a football hooligan crowd. And again, the football hooligan crowd
and with the experience of the 2011 riots, that's been brought into play. We've just got a minute to talk about the prisoner exchange that's taken place. Quite remarkably, 24 people released. Alex.
Yeah, amazing. And of course, we want to see these people released. But there is a point here about the moral hazard you get when you agree to such a swap, because it can, as some of your experts have been saying on the interviews they've been doing with Sky today, it incentivises corrupt regimes to seize people and hold them unlawfully so that they can then swap them for their own. And the example I think of is Vadim Krasikov, who the Germans just swapped for, in part, in this exchange for releasing journalists and others from Russia. And Krasikov was a hitman who murdered somebody on the streets of Berlin in broad daylight, a Russian dissident. Imagine if we had caught the Salisbury killers and then we were asked to give them up in return for a deal. You can imagine how people would have felt about it. It does, I think, obviously, freeing people like this is unquestionably a positive, but there is something to be considered here about the perverse incentives at play.
So we have run out of time.
OK, I'll come back to you.
I'll come back to you on that. Let's take a break. Do stay with us. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing when we come back, this on the front of the Telegraph, its headline, Nuclear Software Carried Out by Revolutions. Stay right with us.
Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours, and we're going to take it back.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. Now, freedom! There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes, torrential rain and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued with its ultimatum to the people of Ashkelon, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Zoe Williams and Alex Dean. Let's take a look at the Telegraph front page. And this story, which is, well, it's an exclusive, it seems, from the Telegraph. Britain's nuclear submarine engineers use software that was designed in Russia and Belarus, and this is in contravention of Ministry of Defence rules.
Correct. The rules are very clear that such activity should be undertaken by UK nationals in the UK with the appropriate security clearances. That's not quite what happened here. Our service outsourced to a prime provider in the UK their software coding and so forth, which outsourced to another business, and that second business then outsourced to use coders in Belarus. Now, that is absolutely not what's supposed to happen, and it does make one worry about the resilience and security of our nuclear submarine programme. The MOD has assured people, and sort of this is what they would say, isn't it? I think was what a sceptic might say, that everything is fine and the integrity of the system has not been compromised. But there are real fears.
What are they really saying?
There are real fears about what else has been compromised in our defence network because other projects have been outsourced to the same developers in Minsk. And in the course of doing that outsourcing, the details of individuals in the defence network were released to those Belarusians as well.
Worrying. Or not?
I mean, no, I'm worried too.
You sound it. Just because of time, let's move on to the Eye and story about affordable homes. They're standing empty despite the housing crisis. Housing associations don't have the funds to buy them.
It was quite interesting today. There was also some Resolution Foundation research about Labour's plans with regards to young people ever being able to afford a home. And, you know, considering Torsten Bell actually became an MP and was so influential in the Resolution Foundation, you do have to consider them an internal critic of Labour rather than a kind of brickbat thrower like the rest, the rest of the left. It is certainly the case that they have not cracked housing yet. They haven't got the capital rules in order for housing associations to buy these social homes. They don't have it sorted. Angela Rayner has said that she's much more interested in social housing than affordable housing. But if there aren't the mechanisms to get it into the social housing market, then that's not worth the paper it's written on. Yeah, we don't have the inside, so this point may be addressed by the Eye, but I would just make the point that part of the problem in the United Kingdom is that a lot of the homes that are available are not in the places where they're needed. They're not where people live and want to live. And ultimately, it's very especially in Tory circles, a very unfashionable view, but we need to build more. And we need to build more homes that people can buy and not be shy about it. Labour has said they're going to commit to new high targets on house building, and I, for one, will be supporting them in trying to get that done, because it is in the interest of our society that people can get on the housing ladder.
You said you'll be supporting Labour?
No, on that on that point,
said.
don't clip that.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Very quickly, let's just talk
they're
about...
our government now, right?
They
won the election.
The Gold Rush, a great day at the Olympics in Paris.
So excited. I can't believe we won a trampolining medal. I mean, for goodness sake.
It's great news.
Who even knew we were any good at that?
We were very good.
No, it's unbelievable.
And show jumping.
And Alex, this is Alex's point, really. Obviously, when the sports catch up with what you're good at, then you do start to look better in the table. Because I was getting super excited because Japan.
But we're fourth now. We've moved right up to fourth
I know, and Japan was so dominant for so long.
And Alex, thank you very much for the moment. We'll see you in the 11 o'clock hour. In the meantime, let's take a look at the weather for you. Well, a fresher feeling weekend is in store with some showers to watch out for, but there'll be plenty of sunny spells too. Most places will wake up to sunny skies with just a few showers for western fringes of Ireland and Scotland. However, much of central and eastern England will be grey, damp and muggy. As the patchy rain and drizzle clears from England, the skies will brighten, which could trigger some heavy and thundery showers across East Anglia and the southeast. Elsewhere, it's a fresher day with scattered blustery showers, but it will feel pleasantly warm in the sunshine. Some of the showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland could be on the heavy side, but otherwise most places will have a dry and sunny afternoon with temperatures around average. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, new unrest, this time in Sunderland, as police prepare for a weekend of trouble.